Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rational Investors Daily Brief Recap. We have no idea whether YouTube is going to be recording the beginning of this, so it's kind of always a fun adventure with YouTube and Google. But it looks like we're recording on YouTube, so we have no idea whether hear the volume. So yeah, for all those stopwatcher watchers, and of course I've got the mayor of Albuquerque here helping me out on the back end. Thank you very much for your assistance. He will start his stopwatch now. And we got 10 minutes. Hopefully we can get this thing done, but it'll probably be something like 10 to 15 minutes. So here we go. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, of course, we like to watch the U.S. dollar index closely as it's sort of like the ultimate sort of market proxy in our hegemony world of U.S. dollar dominance. So the U.S. dollar index enjoying a pretty up day here, we might talk about it a little bit further later on. I went in to great length in the daily brief today about how I'm personally finding that the leader of the United States of America is coming out with some absolutely, very dramatic statements, to say the least. And it almost seems like there's a touch of market manipulation going on here as well. So call it for whatever it's worth. But the Friday announcement was the American companies are ordered to find business in other countries away from China, which is quite shocking to hear that coming out of political leaders. And then all of a sudden today, actually we're back negotiating and we're back friends again. What was really interesting is we had Sjoerd, who's out of the Netherlands, and I do like having sort of a international flavor to these daily briefs because he sees the world from a European's perspective, and he noted that none of the Chinese have validated any of the statements that Mr. Trump is saying here. So I don't know if we can actually believe anything that this gentleman's even saying now. But having said that, on the sort of everything's okay statements, U.S. dollar jumps up dramatically here today. The index following Friday's meltdown. As you can see from the chart, really all we're doing is we're just playing in trading ranges. And we'll see this later on in the S&P 500 stock indexes, how dramatic these moves are. And yet, ironically enough, all they're doing is just pushing the market into buying and selling windows for the 1%, the institutional players, Goldman Sachs's of the world. It was interesting, of course, on those very dramatic statements out of Mr. Trump on Friday, and also on the heels of the Jackson Hole commentary coming out of Mr. Powell on Friday as well. Gold market jumped up violently here and even went higher first thing overnight. But as soon as he comes out and says, oh, no, actually, we're all friends again and everything's fine, you can see the gold market is actually coming off here a bit. For the gold bugs, we actually broke this apart. Like looking at this chart, unfortunately for a guy like me, there's no way I can participate in a market that's come this far, this fast, so quickly on the long side. I can't do it. But we do have traders on the site that watch things like the gold market very closely, and they want to take trades and setups. So we basically outlined how, if the internals do start turning up here on these short-term gold charts, how we could have a continuation setup here develop on the gold trade. So I would be watching this 1550 level really closely on the gold if you are a gold bug and you want to play that to the upside for further continuation. One sort of note of caution there, though, is, I'm a big fan of gold and yen often have to move in conjunction. As you can see, U.S. dollar index enjoying a very substantial rally this morning. One of sort of the victims of that big rally was this move higher here on the yen right out of the gate first thing this morning. It looks like there's some funny business going on here. So, as sort of our ultimate, risk on, risk off vote that we have in the marketplace that we like to follow, if our risk off proxies are all moving to new highs and it is a risk off scenario, why is the yen getting hit as hard as it is this morning? So we'll keep a close eye on this. And really, I think you could argue for the risk-off trade, we've got basically a range established here. Moves to the upside, and specifically with regard to the yen, a break of these hold highs will, to me, say that the risk-off trade is back on. I know that sounds awfully confusing, but for the time being, we're just sort of going sideways. With regard to risk on, and I actually tweeted a chart out over the weekend, how I noticed, and this is what I sort of mean by market manipulation, something just doesn't smell right about this. Like Mr. Trump, as the market's moving up, and Julian on his Thursday's baby powder report highlighted how there was a massive put open interest on the S&P 500, the SPYs. And there was a lot of incentive for Wall Street and the 1% and, Goldman Sachs and all that to keep the market down below that level. And yet you can see the market had a head of steam of it, and it wanted to head higher. And then Mr. Trump comes out with his horribly outlandish statements. American companies are ordered to move their business elsewhere. And the market just lost its lunch through that. But interestingly enough, notice the lost their lunch move did nothing more than just bring the market right back down into a buying window. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Trump comes out and says, oh, no, it turns out, everything's hunky-dory. We're going to be negotiating again. Oh, my God, this is ridiculous. So the irony of all of this stock market right now through the latter part of the summer, keep in mind that most of the pros are away, right? They're in the Hamptons. It's just the guys that are pushing the market around for short-term gains. They're just playing with this market, and I think Mr. Trump is totally placating them. What I did find fascinating, this sort of risk-on, risk-off debate, you can see how Bitcoin is basically following this almost identical pattern. And one of the sort of tells that, hey, maybe risk-on is okay is I noticed this beautiful double bottom come in again through reload zones. What a shock. On Bitcoin, and it started to perk up here. Now, what was really cool, like I said, we have special speakers through the week that come on and talk and give us their perspective on the show. Sjord loves to follow RSI and Bollinger Bands and all those kind of fun studies. And he was starting to say that he sees a lot of potential W's coming in on RSI studies on Bitcoin, and things like MACD is trying to W out on the histogram. And it was interesting because I run a little algorithm on I run the algorithm across the board on all the major markets, but specifically with regard to crypto, I run the algo on the big cash indexes, and I started to get uber bullish signals from my algo through that W event. And you could argue 1, 2, 3. All right, we've got a nice trend line breakout. Show me some sort of structural signal on the other side while the algo is still uber bull, and I get a buy signal on Bitcoin. So I thought it was really cool how Sjord today mentioned 50-day moving average is sort of sitting right at these levels. If he gets a close above that, W's and RSI, all that kind of conversation, W's and MACD histogram, that starts painting a bullish scenario here. And I do like the fact that the algo is basically saying, look, if we get bullish structure here, we get a buy signal on Bitcoin. I like to default the algo to 2-to-1, sell half at that 2-to-1 level, move your stop to scratch on the remaining. And it's interesting how we have this trend line going right back off of these key lows. And in essence, the 2-to-1 level off of that trend line would take us basically right back up against these old highs and tag that trend line. And also, too, maybe a nice little conversation about the top of value. So keep your eyes peeled, Cryptonauts. We might actually have some interesting price action coming in here on Bitcoin. So actually, I jumped forward a little bit here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the gold. The yen, and how I'm a little concerned for gold bugs, that this is looking a little dangerous. We did also talk a little bit about short-term setups here on gold if you wanted to play this to the upside. I still think this needs a little bit more work. One thing that did jump out at me today, like I said, I jumped forward and I talked about this chart, but I'll jump backwards just a moment. I'll talk about this chart. Playing this short-term push, actually, I think the trade here, if you are a short-term momentum player, this is a really good example of, we had a site member who's gone on to crypto fame, and he has his Da Vinci codes and all that, but when he was a student on this site, I encourage students to make their setups their own. I'll teach you all the different tools that you can use and how to interpret them, and then you find, what tools work best for you. And Da Vinci, I'm speaking specifically, he found that when you see W's in OBV and you see W's in price momentum studies like RSI happen simultaneously, and you see W's in price, that's actually a pretty damn good signal. I believe that Dav would just simply, and of course if he wants to come on, if he watches this later on and talk a little further about it, he just simply risks the market structure, and he's looking for a 2-to-1 profit objective. So it's interesting how 2-to-1 profit objectives are basically just a tad bit higher on the silver trade here this morning, but it's actually a really good illustration that if you want to play the market on a short-term basis, very fast signals, this Davo model, and you could also argue there's a nice little trend line breakout as well. This Davo model actually works pretty darn well for short-term momentum pushes, and I think that trade is working right now. Let's see. So we talked a little bit about Bitcoin and the correlation with the stock market. I think there is a lot of correlation there. Also, too, when we talked about Sjord, he said that, and we could probably just throw it on here real quick, and I know I'm probably over time, but I'm having fun, what the hell. But if we throw on something as simple as a 50-day moving average, which a lot of people like to use, is just sort of a simple, am I a bull, am I a bear? Sjord was talking a little bit earlier today about how, he needs to see a nice close above this level. And then remember I said with the algo, what I need to see is market structure signal, or in essence go and take out that high, because off of like lower time frames, right, there is that breakout algo signal. I got to see the market get up through these highs. But in essence, you can start to see the bullish case being made here. I don't think it's here yet, and I think it's a little dangerous to front run this. So what we'd like to see is Bitcoin close the day nice and strong. If we change this to a line chart, we want to see these W's confirm. And, if you want to be a little slower, you can wait for the market to close above this W pattern level, which would be a nice close above that 50 SMA. I think you can make the argument that we'll go into bull mode there, but it's not here yet, and probably we'll be updating this as we go along through the week in these little 10-minute summaries. I think the only market, we'll finish off today with just a quick talk about sort of Bitcoin dominance and some of the sort of internals. I like to follow the OKCoin spreads. Again, you can see that cute little W that's trying to come in. We're well above the zero line, so that means sentiment within Bitcoin itself is still bullish. Cute little W's in the spreads. Here was the M, and of course we started working our way lower. So the fact that we're trying to W out here is a good sign. And then I'd also say too, with regard to the dominance, we're actually, you can see the cute little W that's trying to come in here right at the end of this study. We had said recently that maybe we might have an altcoin rally market this year if the dominance could break down and confirm this market structure top here. And as you can clearly see, the war is on right now, and we still haven't really won to the upside here to the upside or the downside, and this dominance debate is still raging here. I think you have to wait for this actually to confirm to actually call it officially like altcoin bull market. When we looked at a bunch of altcoins through the Broiler Chicken show, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't overly impressed with what I saw. Just as illustration, very quickly here, where are we here? For example, some of the smaller altcoins, you can see there's a lot of red on the screen. TRI bear, TRI bear. A couple of these are hanging in, but TRI bear, bear, bear. Sorry everyone, I've got a cold right now, so I'm a bit under the weather. But long and short of it here is, you know, for the purposes of today's report, I'm still not totally convinced that the dominance debate has been settled yet. So keep your eyes out for this. And really, for dominance in particular, we really need to see this M confirmed before we can actually start calling, you know, some revaluation on the little alts. You know, ETC is a real interesting character. Of course, it bottomed quite a while ago. You know, I encourage everybody on in our school program and you know, in the public in general, to hunt these weekly W's. Interesting how we came back down against these levels. I don't know whether I'm comfortable buying ETC up here, but if we can get a check of the original breakout, a check of all these key lows, and notice too here that there's a reload zone that happens to line up with a nice little cheeky gap right in here. So if you did want to take a look at an altcoin to put some money to work in here, I really do like this ETC down in sort of like this $6 area, looking to simply risk against these lows. So there's an idea for you to chew on here coming out of today's video. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best, and bye.